Today, tech jobs. Is the bloom off the rose?
Then Joe Biden says it's time to make the web take responsibility for what it publishes.
And YouTube and Facebook are ready to reinvent music videos.
This is Future Forward, and I'm Alexis Verdado.
And I am Steven Rosenbaum, and let us launch. All right, we have a show in 3 chapters today. Tech jobs number 1, then section 230 we're going to get to, and then music videos just to kind of lighten things up at the end. But we're going to jump right into tech jobs, and we have brought with us our friend Glenn from IEEE Spectrum, because the article that triggered this conversation was the Spectrum article. Hey Glenn, how are you?
I'm fine, Steve. Good to see you.
Nice to see you as well. Where are you? There you are. Okay, there you are. There are 2 articles that kind of triggered a conversation. The first one, let's start with the first one and spend a few minutes on it, and then we'll kind of go to the counterpoint a little bit and see how they fit. So this was an article from Spectrum that basically said tech professionals dominate rankings as best jobs in the U.S. Talk a little about what you guys discovered.
Yeah, so I forget the exact number, but I think something like 7 or 8. And this was according to, I believe it was a Glassdoor survey. And they came up with this criterion based on job satisfaction, salary, and there was a third criterion. I think it was basically demand for that job. In other words, how hard would it be for you to get this job? It's hard to be third baseman for the Yankees. It's less hard to be a full stack developer. But so they crunched through all these numbers. This is a great application of big data. And they came up with the best jobs, and 7 or 8 out of the 10 were tech jobs. And the top 3 were front-end developer, Java developer, or Java coder probably, and data scientists were the top 3.
So when you ask somebody about job satisfaction, talk a little bit about Glassdoor in a second, does it really come down to money?
Well, I think the Glassdoor criterion were pretty good because they use money as one of 3 criterion. I mean, you could probably even come up with more than 3, but let's face it, we all need a certain amount of wherewithal to just get on with our lives and feel security. I mean, if you're struggling every week, your life isn't happy. So, I mean, study after study has found that money doesn't equal happiness beyond a certain point. And that point is generally what you need to not have to worry from month to month. So we all know that tech jobs, most tech jobs, especially ones on the West Coast, Silicon Valley area, pay pretty well. And it's not just about pay. There's benefits and so on, retirement, which puts people's minds at ease.
So Alexa, does that hold up to you? I mean, do you think? Is that what you hear from your peers, that their tech jobs are their happy jobs?
Yeah, I won't even say my peers. Like quantitatively, Stack Overflow runs an annual developer survey, and so when I was there for 4 years, I sort of studied job trends in the tech space really closely, and the median starting salary for a developer in the United States is $90,000, which is like significantly higher than my first entry-level job. But it was also not the first. Money was not the primary driver. It was like a thing that probably influenced job searches the most. But things like ability to work on a product that you like or ability to learn on the job were just as important. So in broad strokes, I would say that money is important, but it is not the be all end all. And the combination of, higher starting salaries and mobility at these companies, coupled with the culture and sort of, whether it's learning a technology or remote work, it does sort of paint this picture that tech jobs are better than your typical 9 to 5.
All right. So anything in this data, then we'll get to the New York Times article next. Anything in this data that shows kind of a ripple in the force? I mean, what are the jobs that lost out to tech? I mean, I'm trying to think of, tech has been kind of this fire hose of money for as long as I can remember. And in fact, one of the things that we talk about at the Media Lab is this challenge that New York is facing as Hudson Yards builds out these massive tech footprints with these big, high-paying tech jobs. It becomes harder and harder for startups to compete. You say to a really talented young engineer, well, I can pay you $35,000 in some stock options, and Google says, why don't you start at 150? It becomes harder and harder to get young people to come to startups. That's not necessarily the issue of tech. I mean, competition's competition, but New York is facing that. Alexa, anything in the IEEE article that made you kind of wrinkle your nose at all, or did it all seem like pretty much what you thought?
What's interesting is it was for me noteworthy to call out the Java developer, because a lot of
So let's jump to this second piece, because I think it's important to think about not just where we are today, but where we're going. There's an article in the New York Times, and a phrase that maybe I hadn't heard before, techlash, and it was essentially suggesting that college campuses aren't, the bloom is off the rose. People aren't as excited about Facebook and Google and other tech companies. What do you guys think of that? Did that article seem to be, kind of where things are?
I thought it was an interesting article. I had some quibbles. I think parts of it were, just off the mark and maybe even slightly silly. But overall, I thought it was an interesting message. And the article kind of traced an interesting arc, because it started off saying that, for a number of very big companies, and it singled out Google, Facebook, Amazon, and Palantir as being giant companies that just a few years ago, as recently as a few years ago, were the destination of choice for the top tech graduates, undergraduates. And for me, because the article seems to suggest that they were eschewing paths into these giant tech juggernauts. But then at the end, they quoted recruiters and others saying that, well, we're not seeing any drop in the numbers. I mean, we're still getting lots of kids applying from these elite schools. So, the front of the article, the lead, didn't really so much match the end. But I think what the idea is that students are still from elite schools, the best tech students from elite schools are still interested in these companies, but they're not as unreservedly interested as they once were. This is no longer like, I want to go to Facebook and I can't wait to get there. It's more like, they may still be applying there and they're even taking jobs there, but they're less proud of it, is the sense that I got.
Yeah, look,
and
I get that, right? I mean, you say to your friends, I just got an offer from Apple or Google or Facebook or Twitter, or maybe not Twitter so much, or Slack, and all your friends go, oh, that's awesome, and they've, I've got free sushi, and they do my laundry, and there's dogs in the office, or whatever,
cleaning.
Right? But then when you get there, it's a job, right? I mean, my friends that work there tell me the work is crushingly demanding.
Yeah, I mean, but I don't even think that's a problem because the kind of kids who get into, Ivy League schools or MIT or Caltech or Stanford, these kids are used to crushingly demanding work
yeah.
and long hours, and they're not really afraid of that. And they don't mind doing it, but they want to feel like they're doing it for a company that's really on the side of the angels and is making a positive difference in the world. And news headlines over the past couple of years have really given them pause about that. Exhibit A is Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg's, constant sort of testifying, but unconvincingly that the company, has really, is not this organization that has, wittingly or unwittingly helped hackers from Russia subvert our elections. I mean, I think that's a point that is the gorilla in the room here. It's getting harder and harder for that line to really carry weight with young people, especially.
Yeah, it's funny.
We're not really here to debate that so much as to say that that's the perception. And there, the same thing is sort of being played out in other spheres. With Google, it's not that, but there's been a lot of controversy over the stupendously high award, golden parachute, if you will, that Steve Rubin was paid after he was accused of sexual harassment. Now, Steve Rubin, no one doubts his importance as the, originator of the Android operating system, which, almost all of us carry in our pockets. So, but when allegations of sexual harassment arose and they parted company with him and he was awarded a stupendously high payoff, this is one of a couple of incidents that have soured some young people on Google.
Yeah, so Alexa, jump in here because I know you had something you wanted to say, and we're going to run out of time.
No, it's just, I mean, Steve's seen me grow up. Like, I interned for Steve early in my career, and at the time, I mean, the world was still asking itself, like, what is Facebook? What is Twitter? When I talk to recent grads, I'm just like, at the end of the day, a job is a job, and it's kind of going to boil down to what you value and sort of who you want to work for, who you want to learn from. And there are going to be like good players and bad players everywhere. And I would say even if you got a bad experience, that's still going to be a learning experience, right?
All right. So we are out of time for this segment. I think this is fascinating. I think we are at a turning point. I think jobs are jobs. And I think the big googly-eyed, no pun intended, we're at tech and tech's going to change the world and I can get paid an enormous amount of money and somehow be pro-social without any consequences. I think that is coming to an end. And maybe that's the natural evolution of things. Well, Glenn, thank you very much for this report. Very helpful. And we'll see you again in a couple of weeks. So, Alexa, I thought that was a great way to start the show. And really, the complexity of that, yes, they're great jobs, but they're jobs and they're not social. I mean, if you want to go do social causes, a social cause is a different career path. And I think there was a moment in time when you could take one of those jobs and feel like you were both getting free dry cleaning and on a social path.
Totally.
Not so. By the way, you know what company's name never comes up in those conversations?
What?
Amazon.
Oh, yeah. That's it's interesting. I know very little about their recruiting pipeline strategies.
Interesting, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like partly because I think people who've worked there going back certainly 10 years or longer will tell you, there was an Amazon New York Times kind of expose a couple of years ago about it being a hard place to work,
right.
And how they treated women and a bunch of other issues. But like, I don't think that the pro-social gauze ever was covering Amazon.
No, and also, I mean, I think they've also been seen as a company that doesn't pay well relative to the bigger tech companies. All
right, so let's move on to Section 230 because it took a big swizzle this week. Pretty interesting. Maybe we should just start for podcast listeners. Like, do you want to take a swing at explaining the Communications Decency Act in Section 230, or should I?
I think you should, because I was actually going to, I didn't even have time to research sort of like the evolution of it or sort of what catalyzed it. So.
All right. So Section 2, so So when the web began early on, there was this safe harbor provision in the Communications Decency Act that said web technology platforms were not publishers, and therefore they didn't have an obligation to review things before they went live. But they did have an obligation to respond to takedown notices, copyright claims, and that bit of legislation turned out to be critical for the launch of certainly YouTube, and really all the web publishers, Facebook, etc. And you could say, either lived behind or hidden behind, take your choice, what's called Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. And in the last 2 years, you've started to hear a drumbeat of people saying, hey, wait a minute, maybe this doesn't work. Maybe letting Facebook and Google, these two massive companies, essentially dominate the web by having no responsibility. Are they publishers or are they platforms? And what's interesting about this debate is that it's strangely bipartisan. The Democrats feel like 230 allows bad actors to behave without punishment on the web, and the Republicans do as well. And that is what may make it one of the rare things that is going to, get bipartisan support. Now, having said that, a couple of days ago, Joe Biden came out and said, kind of without any, kind of coarsely, we got to, and no one said revoke 230. People have said modify, rewrite, redraft, whatever. Biden came out and said revoke, get rid of it, time to get rid of it. That's a big headline for the web world.
I was surprised that he even said, I've never really been a fan of Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah.
And I was like, what?
Yeah.
Without going too far down the political rabbit hole, it's funny reading the articles and seeing his commentary. I don't know how informed it is.
Well, let's assume that his, internet technology advisor, that's not a position you take. I don't think that's how he delivered it. May have seemed a little bit muddled to you, but I think that decision was made pretty carefully. And by the way, the debate about 230 is not a simple one. I mean, there's a lot of players in it, and shameless self-promotion. I'm going to be moderating a debate about this very matter at South by Southwest this year. And here, our podcast listeners get to hear this first because it's not public, but we've just gotten as our third guest the chairman of the Federal Election Commission, chairwoman.
Wow.
Yeah, FEC. And so it's going to be a very political, but a lot of this goes back to, what happened in the last election, and the sense that, election muddling was allowed to kind of run amok at both Twitter and Facebook, and that they've taken very little, they've taken some responsibility, but they're not doing much about it. And so that's, right. I think, why, Democrats and Republicans alike feel like it's time to make some kind of a change in terms of, 230.
So can you play devil's advocate and see why some individuals would say, no, you can't revoke because it sets a precedent that there would be rampant censorship?
So the most vocal people saying that are the Electronic Frontier Foundation. And the EFF has been pretty clearly on the side of Section 230 is the basis of free speech on the internet. And the minute you take it away, again, I'm about to give you a bad answer, but, in some ways, if we could get in a time machine and go back to when the internet was evolving and made those companies more responsible earlier, maybe they wouldn't have gotten so big and dominant because there would have been checks and balances in place. But you can't rewrite history.
Yeah. It was interesting. There was on Twitter maybe a couple of days ago, there was someone basically tweeted to MailChimp, the email platform,
Yep.
that there was sort of like a racist person using their service to create like a white supremacist like list, and MailChimp basically responded immediately and was like, "Oh, thanks for bringing this to our attention. We've like suspended the account." And some folks applauded it and they're like, "Yes, finally, like a tech company that is being responsible, that has principles and is enforcing them." And then there are like a whole bunch of other people who are like, "No way. Like this is bad. I'm canceling my MailChimp account." Because this is, and so it reminded me of these articles too, because MailChimp is privately held, right? And so they can actually do whatever they want, but I was thinking about how that would play out at Google and Facebook.
So when I was running Magnify, we had somebody set up and run a white supremacist KKK channel, and we had a big conversation about what to do, and we were passionately in favor of free speech and free access, and we didn't really want to get into the role of having to moderate where the lines were.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we did was left the site up and donated all of the revenue that came from the advertising on the site to the ACLU.
Oh, okay.
And informed the people who were building the site that they were generating revenue that was going to the ACLU.
And then what happened?
They took it down.
Oh, wow. That's an interesting playbook, Steve. I love that.
Yeah, I felt at the time, I thought it was kind of crafty, and it was like, how do you not be hypocritical? Now, having said that, the world has changed a lot since then, and I'm not sure we would have made as nuanced a decision today. I think we would have pulled the plug today.
Yeah.
And I think we would have said what we keep hoping that Mark Zuckerberg will say, which is, this is a private company. There is no ultimate right to free speech on no publisher is required to publish my book. No television network is required to, put my show on their air. And we could have just as easily said, you know what, this doesn't meet our promise of, reasonable free speech, and we could have just taken it down. And I think maybe today we would. Let's dig further into the Biden thing. What made you think that it was not carefully reasoned?
I just think, in the broadest strokes, I just feel like every single time tech CEOs have showed up on the Hill in Washington, D.C., the line of questioning has sort of painted a picture of just ignorance and not really understanding sort of like a digital first perspective. Just, again, like people in government versus people in tech. And I just wonder if, in the way that Elizabeth Warren has come out so strongly about saying the government needs to step in and basically like interfere with big tech, was Biden's like, were his strategists sort of saying like, okay, we're going to approach this in a different way.
All right, so let me read you the quote from Biden, because that'll give us something to talk about. So he said Section 230 should be revoked immediately, and then he went on to say, quote, the idea that it's a tech company is that Section 230 should be revoked immediately, should be revoked, number one, for Zuckerberg and other platforms. It should be revoked because Facebook, quotes, is not merely an internet company. It is propagating falsehoods that they know to be false.
Right, but then if you think about that statement, though, he's not acknowledging the complication, right? Because he can advertise on Facebook and say all of these things about his position and his platform, and then the moment people say, well, that's not true, it's propaganda, it's campaign fodder, it's whatever, like, again, it's so complex.
All right, so let me just clear something up that's important. Anyone can sue anyone in this country, right? I can sue you for defamation because you said on the podcast that blah blah blah, and I can
orange,
yeah, whatever, and that's the way that our legal system works. the internet, Facebook now in particular, and Google and Twitter and others have a unique protection. They cannot be sued for what they do or say. So revoking 230 doesn't take away free speech on any of these platforms. It simply puts them in the same position as any other speaker in this country or any other publisher or, you can sue if you don't like what the New York Times writes about you, you can sue them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they can defend themselves and they can hire a lawyer and it makes for a lot of lawyers in this country. But one could argue that Facebook's kind of unimpinged growth is because they essentially profit.
They're not challenged in
right.
this way.
They profit from transmitting falsehoods.
Mm-hmm. So you're just saying that revoking Section 230 basically slows Facebook down, and that the legal process, like litigation and suing people for libel, is basically sort of a countermeasure to propaganda and misinformation.
Look, at the end of the day, if you decided to sue Facebook personally, let's be honest, you find a great lawyer, he agrees to work pro bono, whatever. Facebook has floors of lawyers. It would grind through the courts. It would literally make your skin want to peel off. It would be so slow and painful. So it really doesn't give individuals that much of a crowbar lever against something as large as Facebook. But it does say that, for example, presidential candidates or campaigns or political parties or companies that feel like they've been mistreated would be able to, I think you're going to see 230 change. I think, all right. So we have time for one more little quick story as we get to the end of the half hour. Just to kind of lighten things up a little bit, let's talk about what's happening with music videos, shall we?
Yeah. Also tied to Facebook.
Oh, yeah, well, of course.
All roads lead to Facebook.
So, YouTube has quietly but kind of relentlessly become, for a generation, some version of what radio is.
Mm-hmm. Or what MTV used to be.
Yeah, although it's a fair question. When young people go to a party and use YouTube as the soundtrack, like, are they really watching the videos? I'm not sure. I think not.
I've been to parties where, yes, sometimes.
Okay, but so YouTube Music announced 3 new personalized playlists, including Spotify Discover this weekly rival, which is interesting. Why would they do that, right? YouTube is taking on Spotify, Apple Music, and others with the launch of 3 personalized playlists. Its own version of Spotify Discover, called Discover Mix, as well as New Release Mix and Your Mix. I think that might be a really good thing.
I thought it made so much sense. Again, because I have witnessed people playing YouTube music videos as the soundtrack to their parties before, and I feel like YouTube has become such a music-oriented destination that this is just something to add to their lineup that I feel like is people already want it.
So why is this a different story than the Facebook story?
Oh, the Facebook one for me is just it gets into licensing and distribution, and it speaks to the music industry basically saying that YouTube actually has too much control over them, and so they're turning to Facebook for an alternative.
So I was tangentially able to have a little insight into what was going on at Vivo back when Vivo was trying to build its own brand and essentially pull views away from YouTube so that they had some control. So Vivo is owned by the music industry. It's owned by labels. And the idea was that, hey, why are we giving our cherished jewels to YouTube? Why don't we do the premieres on Vivo and the original? And I've lost track of what Vivo is doing, but it does seem to have faded a bit into obscurity in the last 2 years.
It was very successful at sort of debuting music videos when it was released. That's what I know them for. I think it gets down to distribution. It gets down to distribution, licensing, ownership. And I actually think if you want to be an IP, talk about great jobs, I think IP law is probably one of the most fascinating.
Oh, what a mess. What a complicated, messy, difficult, unclear space.
Totally, right? But probably super interesting in terms of just how like if you think about a set of laws that could evolve quickly, there's a lot there. I don't know, at a high level, I just think that, given the monopoly oriented nature of tech, that any industry right now is just in search of anything that creates more competition. Less dependencies on one channel, one provider is a good thing for everyone.
I concur. We are out of time. An awesome week. Thank you. Enjoy the long weekend. Everybody, read a
Happy
little bit.
MLK Day.
Read a little bit from MLK on Monday because his words seem shockingly important. I'm going to write a blog post later in the day about exactly that. See you in a week.